Today we're going to California, but more specifically the city that I grew up in. And I'm talking about a place where nobody's mowed their own lawn since 1994. I'm talking about a place where everybody is in a band even though nobody has any talent. I'm talking about a place where everybody wants to live by the beach even though nobody surfs.
I'll tell you where.
I'm talking about a place where 40-year-olds still skateboard. When are these guys gonna grow up? Start playing video games like me. I'm talking about a place where people care more about their Instagram likes than their actual careers. I'm talking about a place where if you don't own a home by now, it's never gonna happen. I'm talking about a place that was once the biggest craft beer city in the world, but in recent times, the mighty have fallen.
I'm talking about a little place called
San Diego, the biggest city in the Southwest before you hit Mexico. Now let's rewind the clock. There's a ton of great San Diego IPAs that got me into drinking craft beer 10 plus years ago, like Society's Pupil, Alpine's Duet, Green Flash's West Coast IPA, Modern Times Orderville, and Pizza Port's Swami's IPA. But no beers were bigger and had better word of mouth than Ballast Point's Sculpin IPA and Stone Brewing's IPA with their iconic green and black branding. See, both Stone and Ballast Point started in 1996 and they had a huge jump on the market. But to be honest, I don't remember craft beer being really popular until about 2010. Sure, you could see Stone and Ballast Point in stores and at restaurants, but I don't remember people actually going to drink their beer at tasting rooms. I visited Sierra Nevada once in college, but that was it. I never went to tasting rooms or knew they really existed until around 2012 or 2013. Around 2013 was the gold rush era to open up a brewery in San Diego. It was the coolest thing in the world to go to a new brewery at this time. I remember buying a glass growler from every new brewery I'd visited, and I'd collect them and I'd decorate my fireplace like every douchebag college kid. But now if you hear somebody is opening up a brewery in San Diego, it's almost like, hey man, nobody cares. Not only that, but a lot of these OG breweries that got me into craft beer aren't standing on their two legs anymore, and some aren't even standing at all. Ballast Point sold out to Constellation in late 2015, the biggest beer import brand in the US that has Corona and Pacifico in their portfolio, but this wasn't a bad thing for Ballast Point. They clearly won in this, and Constellation definitely lost. 4 years after Constellation bought Ballast Point, they sold it to a Chicago-based company for around 1/10 of what they bought it for. Buying high and selling low is no way to go through life, and I don't see too much of Sculpin anywhere these days. Unfortunately, Stone didn't have the same story as Ballast Point.
Well, the almighty dollar's important because I can't run my business without it.
Stone came out of the gates with this whole anti-corporate Budweiser attitude. They repped being independent almost like a punk rock band. They sold merch that had fizzy yellow beers for wussies and slogans like "you're not worthy," pretty much meaning drink our high percentage beers or you're a pussy. And you know what? It worked. Stone was awesome, but over time it got weird. A brand that once seemed to have the most integrity started to lose their way. For starters, they actually did come out with yellow fizzy beer. They had a bunch of layoffs, and you heard they were shutting down tasting rooms even before COVID. I understand West Coast IPA is not working in Shanghai or even Germany, but your beer is supposed to work in California. Stone spent a ton of money restoring an old historic building in Napa. It was open for a bit before they had a lawsuit with the city of Napa, and Stone lost. And then there's COVID, and then their last-ditch effort was their hard seltzers. A company that once ripped on every brand's light beers is now trying to sell hard seltzers. That might make the outtake. That's gross.
It's like watermelon bubble-licious gum.
So now you're at a point where you have to sell to stop the bleeding. So 2 months ago, Stone sold to Sapporo for $165 million.
Grow a company and sell it out and make bank. I'm
not sure if that's good or bad for where Stone was in 2022, but something tells me that they would have laughed at that figure if Sapporo offered them $165 million in 2015.
And be able to retire with hookers and blow.
Sapporo gets the brand, 2 production facilities, a couple of restaurants, and a handful of Stone tasting rooms, but Stone gets to keep their distribution company that houses about 45 brands.
Hookers and blow.
what happened.
What did happen to the craft beer scene? Too much competition and oversaturation? Was it COVID? Was it over forecasting? Taking out too much money to begin with? Was it hiring way too many people like me? Was it the hangovers? Or was it the craft beer was just a fad and had a great 10-year run? Maybe it was all the above. I tried to sniff out how many breweries were in San Diego, but all the information is either bad or outdated. Most sites confuse cities with counties, and most sites say that San Diego has about 150 plus breweries. Very vague. That might be true if you're not counting satellite tasting rooms. See, satellite tasting rooms are tasting rooms where there's no production going on. Nobody is brewing beer here. So a brand can have one production facility with a tasting room on site, but 3 other satellite tasting rooms in the same city. Sure, that might count as 1 brewery on Google, but that is 4 breweries if you're looking at it from a competition and forecasting perspective. So if 5 breweries have 4 rooms each, that's not 5 breweries, that's 20 breweries. And some of these brands open up tasting rooms just a few miles away from their existing rooms. So a lot of brands are just competing with themselves. themselves. The most reliable information I found is that San Diego had 219 craft beer rooms as of January 2020, but this site hasn't been updated in almost 3 years. There's a lot of breweries now in San Diego that I've never even heard of that have 3 rooms. And with all that other stuff like kombucha, hard ciders, hard seltzer rooms, I bet my money that San Diego now has in between somewhere from 275 to 300 places to drink craft libations. That's great if you're a customer, but it can be a nightmare if you think it's a good idea to open up a brewery here. We always drink at our local watering hole here in Carlsbad that had close to 20 craft beers on tap at one point, but over time they narrowed it down to about 7 or 8 craft beers. I just thought the trend was dying. I mean, back in the day, we'd drive anywhere looking for new beer releases, but I haven't done that in 5 or 6 years. It seemed like craft beer was just getting localized in San Diego. People were just going to the breweries that were closest to their homes. And in my own San Diego bubble, I thought it was all relative across the nation. I thought that every beer city was just saturated at this point. But something happened. I left California to move to Tennessee, and living in California and Tennessee in the same year is a trip. It's by far the best adult life experience I've ever had. When you leave California, everything gets cheaper. Housing, energy, taxes, minimum wage, food, except for one thing, the beer. Pints in Knoxville are still $7 or $8, just like San Diego, which is weird because their minimum wage is half of what San Diego's is. Not only that, but if you serve drinks in Tennessee and get tips, business owners only have to pay their employees $2.13. Business owners in California still have to pay their booze servers $15 an hour, even if they walk with $500 a night. On paper, pints in San Diego should cost like $11, and pints in Tennessee should be around $3, but it's not. Beers are the same price. And I don't know if I'm just going to these breweries at the right times, but the breweries in Knoxville all seem to be doing great. There's only 25, and a couple of them have one satellite tasting room, but no one's gone out of business, even with COVID. And people get stoked when they hear a new brewery is coming in. It seems like the same story when I go to Asheville, North Carolina. I was out in Texas last month partying with some barrages, and all but one brewery were killing it. Portland's expensive and oversaturated with breweries, but everybody was doing great the last time I was there. To be honest, I'm not sure how craft beer works anymore, but I don't think it's relative. I used to think it was just a per capita thing, but maybe that's just one of many factors. I think maybe each state, city, or county is just its own different beast. But I do know that San Diego has much higher taxes, competition, and wages, so you gotta be selling 2, 3, 4 times the amount of beer to compete with breweries in other states. I had absolutely zero clue how gnarly it was to be a business owner in California until I was able to leave and see it from the outside looking in. We're on the stream every Wednesday night. We're always talking tactics about people wanting to open up breweries, coming up with beer names, coming up with themes, honing in on that 7th IPA recipe no one will give a shit about. But after hitting breweries in other states, counties, and cities, that's the last thing I would be worried about. First and foremost, I want to open up a brewery where I have the most freedom. Most breweries in San Diego have to close at 10 p.m. sharp. If you're packed shoulder to shoulder with live music, closing at 10 can be a huge bummer. Staying open for another hour could be another $1,500 in sales just for that day. It's a trip going to Oregon and Texas and Tennessee and North Carolina and seeing people order hard alcohol and wine at breweries at midnight. $12 for a glass of boxed wine adds up at the end of the year. Most of the breweries I went to in San Diego were only allowed to sell their own beer. Then I'd focus on where minimum wage is the most competitive. How am I supposed to sell $7 beers if minimum wage is going to be $20 an hour by the time that I'm actually open? And then I would focus on the per capita thing. Track down a city with a population of around 100,000 people that has only 10 or 15 existing breweries, not 45 or 50. Then start honing in your shitty IPA recipes. So what's up with the title? Is this my last video? Yeah. Until next week. So subscribe to the channel for that, or don't.
Either way.
Well,
Either way's fine.
This video was not supposed to be this video, but I got kind of plot twisted going down this whole Stone, Ballast Point, History of San Diego rabbit hole. It was supposed to be a San Diego vlog, but that'll be out in a few days. Or 8 months. Competition and a lot of money, yeah. But San Diego's still a great city with a ton of great beers, and even though I'll never afford to live there again, unless I invent something like X-Hamster or MySpace, it'll always be home. So is craft beer dead? Not at all. It's just at different speeds from place to place. And some of these places are just more difficult than others. Take this video with a grain of salt. Take everything I say with a grain of salt. Success always comes down to 2 things. Good ideas and good execution. I know people give me crap for not brewing anymore, and that's fair, but I got a lot of new toys, and I'm gonna get that fired up again. But we'll be back in the saddle shortly. We'll see you guys on the stream tonight. Cheers.